Welcome back to the series Fix the Funnel with G.A. Fix.
Yeah, to be here.
This is our 10th deep dive, which is, it's crazy to think about.
Time really does fly.
It really does.
Hmm.
But today, we have a very specific mission. We are tackling a massive, incredibly frustrating pain point for digital marketers right now.
Oh, absolutely. It is the defining headache of the industry today.
Yeah. So if you are listening to this and you recently migrated your tracking infrastructure over to Google Analytics 4 and your conversion numbers suddenly look like, I don't know, a crypto bull run.
Right. Just massive spikes.
Exactly. Massive spikes, but your actual back-end CRM sales are totally flat. If that's you, you are dealing with the GA4 conversion tracking overhaul.
And it is a total mess for a lot of teams.
Your data is inflated, your pipelines are completely out of sync, and you are basically trying to figure out why the engine you've relied on for a decade is suddenly giving you, well, completely different telemetry.
Yeah, and that's exactly why it matters so much, because GA4 didn't just, update the interface or change a few report names.
Right.
Google fundamentally rewrote the DNA of how tracking functions. We went from an ecosystem that tracked sessions and hits to a completely flat, purely event-based architecture.
Which is a huge mental leap.
Huge. And because the terminology kept shifting, they called them conversions, then they switched to key events, and now they are back to conversions, just to align with Google Ads teams have been left totally misconfiguring their properties.
So they're making critical budget decisions based on essentially a fictional pipeline.
Exactly. A pipeline that doesn't actually exist.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let's strip away the jargon and look at what actually got deleted. Because anyone who spent the last decade building out those 20 session scoped goals per view in universal analytics.
Oh, they are in for a rude awakening.
Yeah, GA4 just stripped that entire architecture out. Like there isn't even a goals menu anymore.
Precisely. To understand why your data is breaking today, you really have to understand what was actually deleted during the migration. In the old universal analytics model, a goal was session scoped, meaning if a user filled out a form, hit submit, and then accidentally refreshed the page.
Which happens all the time.
All the time. Or say they hit the back button and submitted it again within that exact same session, the old system was built to recognize that constraint.
Okay.
It would say, well, I already counted this form submission for this user session. I'm not going to count it again.
It sounds like universal analytics was basically a bouncer at a club with a clicker at the door.
I like that analogy.
Right, like counting unique people entering. Once you swiped your card, you were in for the whole ride. But GA4 operates completely differently.
Completely differently. It is a flat event stream.
So if UA was the bouncer, GA4 is more like a surveillance camera recording every single micro movement.
Yes.
If you trip over your shoelaces while walking past the bouncer, GA4 logs the trip, the fall, and the recovery as distinct events.
That is the perfect way to look at it. Every single interaction, a page load, a scroll, a click, a video play, is just an event with parameters attached to it.
But how does that change how we measure actual business success?
Well, what's fascinating here is that Google tore down the artificial walls between different hit types. In the past, a page view was fundamentally a different type of data object than an e-commerce transaction.
Okay, yeah.
Now, everything is just an event. When you want to track a business success, you don't build a separate goal object. You simply look at your raw stream of events, find the one that matters, like a form_submit, and you literally just toggle a switch.
Just a little slider in the UI.
Exactly. You flip a switch to mark that specific event as a conversion. You're allowed up to 30 of these custom conversions per property.
Which sounds simple enough.
It sounds simple, but the problem is teams are taking their old universal analytics mindset and forcing it into this new surveillance camera reality.
Which leads directly to the migration mess. Because when teams migrate, they suddenly see their event stream divided up into all these different categories, right?
Right, 4 categories to be exact.
You've got automatically collected, enhanced measurement, recommended, and custom events. And I'm guessing the immediate instinct for someone just trying to salvage their old tracking is to just start toggling things as conversions to see what sticks.
Oh, yeah. And that is a recipe for absolute disaster. Let's look at the mechanics of those categories.
Okay, let's do it.
Automatically collected events fire without you deploying any tags at all. It's your session_start, your first_visit.
Just baseline stuff.
Right. But I've seen audits where marketers who are panicked by the new interface, they actually mark session_start as a conversion.
Wait, really?
Yes, and they instantly flood their ad platforms with garbage data. They are telling the Google Ads algorithm that merely arriving at the website is the ultimate business objective.
Wow, you might as well just set your ad budget on fire at that point.
Exactly. You are paying for nothing. Then you have enhanced measurement, which you can toggle on in the settings to automatically track things like a 90% page scroll.
Or outbound link clicks.
Right. And again, highly useful for behavioral analysis,
Yeah.
but incredibly noisy if you mark them as macro conversions without some really aggressive filtering.
So where does the actual legitimate conversion tracking happen?
It happens in the recommended and custom events. Recommended events are the standardized schemas from Google, things like generate_lead or purchase.
Okay, so they have a specific format.
Yeah, they expect specific parameters like transaction_id or currency to pass data cleanly into Google Ads.
Got it. And custom.
Custom events are the highly specific tags you build yourself in Google Tag Manager, like a pricing_tier_selected event.
Okay, so translating old setups to those recommended and custom events is where the friction really hits, because old event-based goals translate fairly cleanly.
Usually, yes.
But what immediately stands out in the architectural differences here is the complete total death of duration and pages per session goals.
They are gone.
Wait. So if I'm running a content publication or a heavily informational B2B site, my entire micro-conversion strategy might have been built on keeping a user on a white paper page for, say, 5 minutes.
Sure.
And GA4 just wiped that capability out. That feels like a massive downgrade for content sites. What are we supposed to do instead?
Well, it feels like a loss until you examine the actual mechanism of how those old duration goals worked.
What do you mean?
Those arbitrary time thresholds, like a strict 300-second duration goal, they were largely vanity metrics.
Because you didn't know if they were actually reading it.
Exactly. They were easily gamed by tab hoarding. A user opens your white paper in a background tab, goes to lunch, comes back an hour later, and Universal Analytics logs a massively successful 5-minute duration goal.
Oh, wow. Even though the user's eyes were never even on the screen.
Right. The system couldn't differentiate between active reading and a buried browser tab.
Okay. That makes sense.
So GA4 forces a shift in your analytical mindset. It replaces those dead goals with built-in engagement metrics, specifically engaged_sessions and engagement_rate.
How does it calculate that?
To qualify as an engaged session, the mechanism requires actual interaction. The user must stay for at least 10 seconds, view multiple pages, or trigger a conversion event.
So it's looking for active foreground presence.
Yes. It pushes you away from, did the stopwatch hit 5 minutes, to, did the user actually perform a meaningful sequence of actions?
Okay, that is a much more resilient metric. I like that. But this shift to tracking every discrete, meaningful action brings us to, honestly, the biggest nightmare for anyone looking at their dashboards right now.
The duplication disaster.
Yes, because GA4 tracks every discrete event instead of unique sessions. Migrating old tracking habits directly into this new system causes a massive epidemic of double counting.
It is rampant. In most of the data audits we see, teams are operating with data inflated by 2 to 5 times.
2 to 5 times? That's insane.
It is, and it all stems from the fact that GA4 conversions by default will fire multiple times per session.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Let's break down the technical mechanism of how this actually happens, because it's not always just a user error in the GA4 interface, right?
No, it's often how the tags are built in the first place.
Okay, so let's say a SaaS company has a free trial sign-up form. A marketer goes into Google Tag Manager and sets up a trigger for a form_submit event. And they tie that trigger to the submit button click.
Which is a very common and very dangerous setup.
Right. So a user is filling out the form, but they accidentally forget the @ symbol in their email address. They click the submit button. The client-side validation catches the error and stops the form from sending.
But the button was still clicked.
Exactly. The button was clicked, so Google Tag Manager fires the form_submit event to GA4.
Yep.
Then the user fixes their email, realizes their password doesn't have a special character, and clicks submit again. Another error, but a second event fires.
It happens all the time.
They fix a password, click submit a third time, and it finally goes through. Under the old system, that might have been contained. But under the default GA4 settings, because that event was marked as a conversion, you just registered 3 trial signups for 1 actual lead.
And your return on ad spend calculations become completely detached from reality. You are literally training the Google Ads algorithm to seek out users who struggle with form validation rather than actual qualified leads.
That is terrifying. It's like paying a salesperson a massive commission every time they call the exact same client instead of when the deal actually closes.
That's exactly what it is.
How do we put a stop to that in the platform? There has to be a fix.
The fix requires diving into the property settings and locating the counting method toggle.
The counting method toggle.
Okay, this is perhaps the most critical setting in the entire GA4 conversion interface.
Right.
For every single conversion event you define, GA4 gives you a binary choice. You can count once per event or once per session.
And by default, Google sets this to once per event.
Yes. And to be fair, once per event is the absolute correct setting for e-commerce.
Right. If I run an apparel brand and someone buys a pair of shoes at 10 in the morning and then realizes they need matching socks.
And they come back and complete a second transaction at 10:30 in the same session.
Right. You absolutely want to count both of those. They are distinct revenue-generating events. You never want to hide revenue from your analytics.
Exactly. Every purchase matters. But for B2B lead generation, white paper downloads, demo requests, or sauce trial sign-up scenarios where multiple submissions from the exact same person do not equal additional pipeline value.
You have to change it.
You have to change that toggle to once per session. That single configuration change is the barrier that stops the inflation we are talking about.
It tells the GA4 surveillance camera, hey, I know you saw this user submit the form 3 times because of validation errors, but only give me credit for the outcome once during this visit.
Precisely. It contains the blast radius of those duplicate events.
That toggle is a lifesaver. But, okay, let's say a listener goes in, they adjust the counting method to once per session, and they think their data is perfectly secure.
It's not.
Right. There is another major trap when it comes to migrating old habits, and that's the reliance on destination tracking.
Ah, the classic thank you page URL.
The thank you page trap. If I'm listening to this, and I'm a marketer with limited developer resources, building custom server-side events in Tag Manager sounds expensive, sounds time-consuming.
It does take work, yes.
So if I just want to track conversions based on a user landing on /thank you, can't I just throw a no index tag on the page and block bots in my robots.txt file?
I hear this argument constantly.
Right. Why are the analytics architects at Ninopol and GA Fix telling me to abandon destination URLs entirely? It feels like we are overcomplicating a simple process.
It's a completely understandable pushback, honestly. Destination tracking is easy to set up, but it is fundamentally fragile. Putting a no index tag on a page only stops polite search engine crawlers from listing it in Google.
Polite crawlers, yeah.
It does not stop the myriad of other ways a URL generates false positives.
Let's walk through the mechanics of those false positives.
Yeah?
Because people need to hear this.
Sure. Let's say a legitimate user fills out your demo request and lands on your thank you page. The browser registers the URL, the conversion fires. Great.
Perfect.
But that user decides to bookmark the page so they remember your company name. Next week, they click the bookmark, their browser loads /thank you, and boom, a phantom conversion fires.
Oh, wow. I never even thought about bookmarks.
Or, even worse, they copy the URL and paste it into their internal company Slack channel to tell their boss they requested the software demo.
Okay.
The Slack bot automatically unfurls the link to generate a preview image. In doing so, it scrapes the page, loading the analytics tag, another phantom conversion.
Wait, really? The Slack bot triggers it, and that completely bypasses any no index directive.
Entirely. And we haven't even touched on query parameters. If you run marketing campaigns, you might have test scripts or aggressive competitor bots scraping your site.
Yeah.
They can trigger the URL just by appending random strings, like /thank you $id equals 123. Because the URL is a public-facing string, it is vulnerable to manipulation.
Is destination tracking ever actually acceptable anymore?
I mean, it can work rarely, like for strictly gated server-side redirects with dynamic session URLs that expire. But if we connect this to the bigger picture, this is why the experts at Ninopol and GA Fix strongly advocate for event-based tracking.
Like a generate_lead tag.
Yes, one that only fires upon a 200 OK success response from your actual server. An event-based setup is inherently bot-resistant.
Because it doesn't rely on a fragile URL string that might just break if a front-end developer decides to restructure the site directories next Tuesday.
Exactly. Furthermore, event tracking is parameter-rich.
Right, because you can pass the data payload securely.
Yeah.
If I rely on a URL and I want to know which product tier they requested, I'd have to expose that in the URL, like /thank you?tier equals enterprise.
Which is messy and insecure.
But with an event, I can pass tier, expected_value, and company_size directly into GA4 parameter payload without ever exposing it in the browser address bar.
Exactly. It's about data resilience and security. Relying on destination URLs in an event-driven architecture is like putting a screen door on a bank vault. It might look like it's doing the job, but it's fundamentally the wrong tool for the environment.
So what does this all mean? It means trapping is clearly no longer a set-it-and-forget-it task.
Not at all.
You can't just build these triggers once, launch the site, and check back in 6 months. It's active, ongoing data hygiene.
Which brings us to the active maintenance side of the equation, because here is the truly terrifying part about GA4.
Oh boy.
It will not send you an alarm when these complex event tags break.
Nothing.
Nothing. If a developer accidentally unpublishes a container in Google Tag Manager, or a third-party form integration updates its code and breaks your DOM listener, GA4 just sits there silently recording 0 conversions.
You could go weeks without noticing. And by the time you do, your retargeting audiences have decayed and your ad algorithms have optimized toward nothing.
Exactly. So a robust monthly audit framework is non-negotiable now.
So if a CMO drops a spreadsheet on my desk and points out that GA4 is reporting 20% more leads than our Salesforce dashboard, what does that diagnostic journey actually look like?
Okay, let's walk through the 5-step GA Fix audit checklist.
Step 1.
Step 1, review recent activity. You are flagging any sudden 0 counts or massive spikes. Step 2, compare against your back-end CRM or marketing automation records. And listen, anything over a 5 to 10% variance warrants immediate investigation.
So if the discrepancy is isolated to just the generate_lead event, that immediately tells you to look at the trigger mechanics.
Right, which leads to step 3, check for double tracking. You open GA4's debug view and simulate the user journey yourself.
You actually test it?
Yes. Are you firing both a custom form_submit tag and relying on an enhanced measurement setting for form interactions simultaneously? If so, you found your double tracking.
And if the event is only firing once per action, you move to step 4.
Validate the counting methods. Did someone accidentally leave a B2B-led form set to once per event?
Right, the toggle we talked about.
Yeah.
And step 5, what if the raw counts actually match? Let's say Salesforce shows 100 closed deals and GA4 shows 100 purchases, but the revenue reported in Google Ads is off by thousands of dollars.
That is step 5. Verify your parameter population. This is critical for e-commerce. You have to confirm that parameters like value, currency, and transaction_ED are actually passing data in the payload.
Because if a developer changed the CSS class of the price element on your checkout page,
your tag manager variable might suddenly be returning undefined instead of the actual dollar amount. The event still fires, so the count is right, but the value is stripped out.
wow, your data-driven attribution becomes completely useless.
Entirely useless. To manage all this complexity, you really have to live inside GA4's debug view and Google Tag Manager's preview mode during any site release.
And frankly, for larger teams, manually clicking through staging environments isn't enough.
No, it doesn't scale.
You have to build anomaly alerts into Looker Studio dashboards or utilize automated auditing tools like GA Fix.ai to monitor the data layer continuously.
Because as the ecosystem gets more complex, properly defined and monitored goals are quite literally the only barrier standing between accurate pipeline forecasting and complete marketing fiction.
It is a massive structural shift.
But once you stop trying to force the old session-based methodology into GA4 and fully embrace the event model, it actually offers far more granular, actionable insight into the exact mechanics of how users navigate your digital properties.
It requires rewiring how we think about telemetry. We have to stop looking for simple page loads and start analyzing discrete user actions. Which leaves me with a final thought for you to mull over as you dive back into your property settings and check those counting toggles this week. We've spent this entire time talking about how GA4 has completely abandoned the concept of session-based goals in favor of granular disconnected events.
Right.
If the core architecture of the world's most popular analytics platform is actively moving away from the session as the primary unit of success, how long will it be before the entire concept of a website session disappears completely from how we measure digital marketing?
That is a fascinating thought.
Yeah.
Will we eventually just measure continuous user journeys without arbitrary time bounds?
That is exactly the architectural question the industry is heading toward. Something to keep in mind while you are auditing your event parameters this week. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time on Fix the Funnel.